Good morning, folks. Welcome to Coffee with Artists. My name is Rachel Wilkins. I am delighted to be joined this morning by somebody who already has his coffee ready to go, the sculptor, Beju Dudali, who's joining me this morning from West Palm Beach. So, Beju, welcome. It's great to have you here.
It's a pleasure, Rachel. It's at last I see you again. I mean, it's been years.
It has been years. I think we met we definitely met during Art Basel, but probably about 4 or 5 years ago now.
Something like that, yes. Mm-hmm. Thanks to Paul Cloud. I need to mention his name.
Right. Shout out to Paul. Hi, Paul, if you're watching. Thank you for bringing Beju to us. We appreciate it. So we're going to talk a little bit this morning about your practice, about your backstory, but also about this major project that you're just about to undertake, which is a huge $400,000 project. So we're going to talk about that at the end of the episode today. So folks, do stick around. It's a great story. It's a great piece that Beju is working on. So like I said, just stick around for that. So let's go way, way back to start this out. You grew up in Cognac in France. Tell us about those early days as a young boy. I read that you were from a military family, so you kind of had, you were moving around a lot as a child. How was that experience, and how did it shape you?
So yes, it's quite a while ago, 63 years ago to be precise.
Wow.
That I was born in Cognac. France, obviously, and I spent most of my life in France, but also in a few different countries in northern Algeria, in Italy for 4 years, in Germany, sometime in Sweden. I mean, I've been all over the place, and the fact is that being raised in a military family, for those who know what it means, you move all the time. At the age of 19, I once counted 16 houses that I'd lived into. So I never had a childhood friend other than my brother and my sister, because we were all together. And our family was a very tight family. My father, being in the military, he was a colonel in the French Air Force, a pilot. He was extremely disciplined. He died 2 years ago, and I found all the paperwork that he kept. I mean, just an amazing organization. Anyway, this is not me. I am so out there, I have ideas. I need to shift. I'll never forget, when I was probably in my mid-20s, my father comes to me and says, "You change jobs all the time. You'll never get, seniority in anything." I told him right away, I said, "Dad, everybody fights to stay young. I don't have to." So yes, we lived in so many different places. And I think that's always been embedded in me, changes. I need to reconsider myself constantly, even in my work, even in my, in Dudali today. I need to constantly come up with new ideas. So, but I'm really focused on Dudali today. I finally found my calling.
So, you talked about the idea of not having, any kind of clear roots at one time, so not being able to develop the friendships. How did that affect you creatively? Did you find that you were able to, as a young person, carve out time and space to be able to create?
So what's really interesting, again, because of my father, the discipline, he took care of us very well. I mean, he had hundreds of different hobbies. We were his favorite, as kids. But the drawback is that I was in a cluster and totally behind his leadership. So I had very little room to improvise. Mm-hmm. And I didn't realize it until I left my parents at the age of 19. And then, I joined the military for lack of any better idea. It was, so I spent 5 years as a alpine hunter. Basically, my job was to lead a team of 10 people up in the mountains, no matter what the conditions, summer, winter. Fortunately, I never had to go to war. I wouldn't want that for anybody. Anyway, so it's only after a lot of time after the military, when I was finally let free to do whatever I wanted, that I realized that I was able to create things.
Hmm.
And so my creativity started when my grandmother, this is a true story. My grandmother, they lived in Caen. Caen, you probably know Normandy, where the invasion took place. The city of Caen.
I thought you
C-A-E-N. No, C-A-E-N.
Okay.
The city of Caen was destroyed. 80% of the city was destroyed.
Hmm.
As a matter of fact, I owe my life to, to a British pilot that dropped a bomb on my father's house.
Wow.
It's a story because my so the house was completely leveled, and fortunately none of my father's family was at home. But when they returned, obviously there was nothing left, nothing at all. And so this other family down the street told him, why don't you move with us for a while? They ended up staying 6 years together. And guess what? My father, that's where my father met my mother.
Oh.
So they got married, after a few years. And here I am to speak about it.
Wow.
And, going back to, what was your question again? Oh yeah, how did my creativity start? So my grandmother had lots of pieces of furniture. My mother's mother, okay, that had been, destroyed or damaged. And she once told me, there's a box in the attic with a bunch of pieces of wood. Why don't you put things together? And so I went on, and bought some glues, clamps, and then worked. And I came across this little piece that was missing, little piece of wood carving that was missing on a little table. So I decided, maybe I can do that. I took out my jackknife and went to the basement, got a piece of wood, a piece of oak, and just started. And I realized if there's any reason I should truly believe in reincarnation, this would be it. I was literally born knowing how to carve wood. I mean, it's just, I don't understand. That's the way it is. So anyway, I went on. My father was really amazed. I was 27 at the time, and he actually went to buy me a set of wood carving tools. And a year later, I moved to Paris and became an artist. So I carved wood. Here's a piece, for instance. This is the truth. Okay, this is the third piece I ever carved. Okay.
What?
And this is oak.
Wow.
Okay, it's oak, and it does this. Oh wait,
That is what?
It's made of one piece of wood, and it even a real lens fits on it because I allowed myself to put a real lens so that I could actually take pictures with. This is here. I'm not going to spend too much time on it, but I think it's worth it.
And it's like, well, not functional that it takes photographs, but it's functional that
not yet. But today with digital cameras, I can probably insert something in it and then make it work. And I'm
unbelievable.
It's going to be a project anyway. So I did all sorts of trompe-l'œil, eye deceiver, for those who wouldn't know what it means. Basically, it's here's another piece.
Oh my gosh. Wow. These are like hyper-realistic sculptures. Wow.
Until you touch it, you would think it's leather. Anyway, this is mahogany and poplar. Wow. So I moved to Paris, rented a small studio thanks to the money that my mother had smuggled from my father and given to me. True.
Wow.
So I established myself there. I worked through Manpower. I worked, I don't know how many different jobs I held. Among them, I was a truck driver because I had my truck driver's license from the military. And I mean, if I name all the jobs that I've held, you wouldn't believe me. You would not believe it. So I'd rather keep it at that. And yeah, I stayed in Paris for 2 years, had my first show outside of the country in Chicago after those 2 years. So that's 3 years into wood carving. This was in 1987, my first show in Chicago. A huge gathering. I made so much money, I couldn't believe it. Came back to France like a I felt like a millionaire.
Wow.
And it all went away like like butter in the sun.
So I have a ton of questions because that is just an amazing story. But I guess, first of all, how did you, at 30 or 27 years of age, sculpt this masterpiece? There must have been something leading up to that in those 27 years. You must have felt some kind of compulsion, or I don't know, had some ideas, or was there nothing before?
So I think, okay, two things. One, it could be, okay, it's a good question because I never even thought about what it could be. But my gut feeling is that I had so much frustration from, my past with my father that maybe I needed to explode. So that's one reason. The other one is, why did I go into trompe-l'oeil? Probably for lack of creativity somewhere, because it's very technical. It's extremely technical. I'm sure you understand the work that's involved into reproducing to a fraction of a millimeter. The mounting, everything. It is so precise. Anyway, so yeah. Why did I go into trompe-l'oeil? Probably because of that. I guess that answers your question.
It's just fascinating to me that you were, you were not a young man. Well, still young, but you were not, experimenting. You just kind of came upon this brilliance out of a need to just express, by the sounds of it. It's amazing. It's interesting because, you were sharing your story about during the war, the British pilot destroying the properties. I actually have a very similar story. My family were from Liverpool, and during the Second World War, my grandfather was doing a paper round, and he was out on his bike, and they heard the air raid sirens and the planes kind of coming across, and he biked like crazy to get home, and he threw his bike and he ran down into the air raid shelter, and they were down there for days. And he said when he came back up, that entire street that he delivered his newspapers on was just completely gone. And you think about like the gravity of those experiences that our very close relatives had, and the impact. And you think about when we say we have problems today.
Adding to what you're saying, my father, again, he passed away 2 years ago, but I had plenty of talks with him. And he told me that for 6 months, not quite, 4 months, for 4 months, he lost his parents.
Wow.
Yeah. Can you imagine the stress? Not so much from the kid, I would guess, oh yeah, okay. But the parents, I cannot even fathom what it might have felt like. And they rejoined through my father's PE teacher, who just, hey, what are you doing here? Oh, I lost my parents. Oh, I know where they are.
Wow.
Yeah.
And we think we have problems today.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's all relative, and I think we need to, consider ourselves very fortunate that in these times here, in the Western countries. I don't want to ignore, all the bad things that are happening, but globally we're still doing fairly well.
And you and I talked a little bit before we jumped on about the pandemic and how it's affecting you. And I like that you said you try to kind of stay where you are in your moment. You try not to get engulfed in that. Tell us a little bit about how it's impacting you.
So really, not at all. I mean, nothing. Personally, it affects me knowing that other people are suffering. I've actually helped, I'm not going to go into details, but I've helped others, deal with it, people that were really struggling. But other than that, it's not, personally, it doesn't affect me. I am conscious of it. I'm doing everything that I can to prevent, the spread of it. I wear a mask when I go out. Although sometimes I tend to forget. Okay, I have to be honest. But I stay at home as much as possible. So, but this, my studio is my world anyway. This is where I work. This is where I concentrate, create. So there's not much of a change personally. The only thing is that I have a house in France, and I can't go there now because I would be stuck not doing anything. And I was hoping to go there sooner. Hopefully I can go there in mid-July maybe, or August. I don't know. We'll see.
I don't know. I was talking to a friend in the airline industry last night, and I said, what do you think the chances are for travel? And she said next summer, maybe.
Yeah, I'm not very optimistic. Well, I am. I'm essentially deep down in my heart, I am optimistic, but realistic, concerning this issue. Yes.
So tell us about the origin of the name Dudali.
So yeah, by the way, this is Dudali. Okay, Dudali is a humanoid character through who I express my views of society by means of body language. I hope that's clear. So I figured out a combination of connectors and proportions that are exactly that of the human body. And just by turning the connectors, there's no bending of any metal or anything, I can switch the position of my character. And I'll show you something very, very eloquent. Body language can be as eloquent as speech, okay? And here's an instance. If I show you 3 different pauses, very similar, but so completely different in their meanings, okay? Here we go. Okay, so if you add the hand can be, doing something like this or like that. Let me move back a little, like this, like that, like that. I mean, and every shift of a tiny, tiny degree can completely change the emotion, the meaning of the pause that I'm trying to accomplish. So it's a very, I like to say that Dudali is feigned simplicity. Yeah, it's just tubes, from Home Depot. Nothing else.
When you did those 3 pauses, the first one appeared very kind of standoffish. Like, I don't want to talk to you. One was very contemplative, and I'm not sure about the other one. What do you think, listeners, viewers? Let us know in the comments.
Again, by itself, the head, means something. But if you add the hand, or even the pause of, the shoulders, or that little wooden character that people, artists use. Yep. This is Dudali. It's but the beauty of Dudali is, I'll get to the reason for the name later, because that's your question. But the real, before, one day, let's go back. One day at breakfast, I owned a business. I sold anything that could represent your dog. I know you have a pug, okay? And he's lovely. He's
a French bulldog, but he looks.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, you're right. French bulldog, Frenchie. I should know. Jeez.
That's all right.
Yeah.
He's not offended.
No, okay, good. So he, I used to sell anything that can, and manufacture and import anything that can represent your dog. A breed specific. So I had earrings, I had mouse pads, T-shirts, life size Frenchies. I had life size Rottweilers. I mean, you name it. One day at breakfast, this is 6 years ago. At breakfast, my wife tells me, "You're not happy. What's the matter?" And I tell her, my business is working, but I'm bored. I need to do something. I need to shift. Okay, what do you want to do? I want to resume my artist career. Remember, this is what I used to do. And I'd completely given up my artist creativity. And what do you want to do? I had no idea. Okay, so we looked at the numbers. She worked. So that was, essential in the progress. So I put a manager in the business. It was an online business. 6 months later, he was doing better numbers than me. So And another 6 months, he comes to me and he says, would you sell your business? I'm a businessman. I go, oh, let me think about it. Deep down inside, I'm like, yes, 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 yes. So anyway, we made a deal. And from then on, I completely decided to go into the arts. But I still had no idea of what I was going to do. So I searched for an idea, and so I made a list of things. This is important for those, who are in the process. Write down your goals, write down your requirements for what you want to do. And from that, you will decide the path to follow to reach your goal. So I remember I wanted something that I wanted to create something that I could do anywhere in the world. Yeah, another big advice, which I got from an artist friend, Marco Casagrande, he's Finnish, although he has an Italian name. Look him up on the internet. This guy is huge. We actually collaborated in our first.
I thought his name was familiar from this project that you have coming up.
So Marco, with his heavy Finnish accent, once told me, Beju, he's tall, got ice blue eyes, bald as I am, and never wears a hat. I mean, this guy is impressive. He does karate. He's just an amazing person. He comes to me and said, Beju, do not let scale intimidate you. And it rang a bell. I'm like, yeah, do not let scale intimidate you. Think big. What is the value of an artist? It's his idea. Okay? It doesn't matter how big. If you make the sculpture this big or 20 feet tall, it's the same thing. Obviously, it's not the same budget, but the idea remains. It's that the concept is really what matters. That's your value as an artist. So I understood this from that quote, just like that. So I decided, you know what? He's right. Let me do big things right away. So I did big things right away. And the beauty of big things, sculptures, is when you go to a show where they what do you call it, with many artists, in a gallery, you tell the gallery, I have a sculpture that you could leave out in the street. It's because it's PVC, it's painted, it's bright, it's fun, it's attractive. And so, oh yeah, that's a great idea. So when the show's over, they empty the room and your piece is left in front. So 2 options. Either you take it out because, the owner of the gallery needs space, or they come to you and ask, do you mind if I keep it? It's a great advertising piece. Okay, so at first I would say, yeah, sure. And then when I realized the value, I said, well, yeah, let's write a contract. And I've kept some, for money. So it's an income, not a huge amount. Don't start dreaming, but you can work it out. So the origin of Dudali. When I decided to go back into the arts, still I have no idea what I'm going to do. And one day I'm walking through the aisles of Home Depot, and I see those pipes, those connectors, and I'm like, wow, this is really cool. And they're all neatly arranged, all different sizes. I can do something with that. So I bought $200 of small parts, small pieces, came back to my studio and started cutting and adjusting. And I'm like, oh, I can do a guy, I can do, boom, boom, boom. And there was born Ali Dude. Ali Dude, because Ali Dude, his first show, he was born in an alleyway. And my wife works, she's an urban planner. So she organized an event into an alleyway here in West Palm Beach. And I asked her, can I bring my, oh yeah, sure, yeah, let's do it. So what I actually did is I took a vacant store and converted it. I called a few artist friends and converted that store into an art gallery. So people would come in from the main street into the gallery. It was organized as a labyrinth. And then they would get to the back door, hear the music coming from the alleyway. Wow, what's that? and they would walk into the alleyway and discover this whole new world that didn't existed 2 days ago.
Wow.
So Ali Dude was born there. And when I started to show Ali Dude, a year later or so in France, I got this Ali Dude, c'est quoi ça? Qu'est-ce que ça veut dire? What is it, Ali Dude? So I'm okay, I need to figure something out. And I went exactly like I'm going to tell you. Ali Dude, Ali Dude, Ali Dude, Ali Dudali, Dudali. Boom. Obviously, clear, loud and clear. So I went online, searched for Dudali.com. Available. I was mesmerized. Such an easy word to pronounce. 6 letters, still available. Well, yeah, 5 years ago. So I bought all the extensions that I could. And so that became Dudali. Eventually, 2 years ago? 2 years ago, I went on to trademark the word Dudali. So today, for sculptures and jewelry, and I own, because it's specific to what you do. I own the word Dudali worldwide. Well, except for maybe Chinese and a few other countries that don't adhere to the protocol. But at least I have some protection.
That's amazing. So I want to talk about the materials because when I was doing my research, I found that you were working in much more conventional sculptural materials. You work with metals. You're working with just the usual suspects that you think of when you think of sculpture. You were also making a lot of functional items like benches and things like that. What in the world made you decide that I'm going to use this totally unusual, some might say a lowbrow material, and how was it received by your peers? How did you feel about it?
Again, feigned simplicity. That's the key word to remember. People tell me sometimes they see Dudali and they tell me, it used to offend me at first. Today I'm like, whatever. Well, my kid can do this. I go to Home Depot, my kid can do this. Sure, yeah. This is probably why nobody's ever done it before. It's too easy. And same thing, big artists, Picasso and all these guys, again, always look big when you think. What's their means? What are their medium? They can go to any art store. Correct me if I'm wrong, artists, painters, but my gut feeling is they can go to any art store and buy a paintbrush, and there you are. Yet they're able to create work that nobody can do. So this pretty much is, why. When I realized the impact of Dudali among my peers, my first reaction was, does it make sense? Is this going to work? But when I saw the reaction of other artists, it was very comforting. I knew that this was the way to go. Another thing, another advice I got from my neighbor, Colleen, I don't know if she's watching now, is one day I was talking with her early on in my process of Dudali. I was talking to her, and I don't know how we got into confidence in the conversation. And I told her, what gives me confidence is the feedback I get when I show my art. She looks at me and she says, it's just the opposite. It's just the opposite. Be confident in what you do, and your confidence will radiate, and people will have confidence in you. The next day, I woke up a different man, and I thank her for that dearly. It's just be confident in what you do, and at first you may want to bullshit a little bit, appear that you know what you're doing, even if you're still trying to discover things. I'm still discovering things every day, but I have. I'm sure it's pretty obvious in my speech, but I have gained that confidence totally. Did I answer your question?
Absolutely. So
I tried.
So you create these humanoid, I think you called them, kind of robotic looking sculptures Do you kind of conceptualize the idea of what these are going to look like, or is it more of an intuitive process as you're in the studio?
Both, completely both. And the reason I say this is because, obviously I have a small scale sculpture that I'm able to articulate and modify, but I also, will take the pause myself. I rarely ever ask someone to mimic a pause. I'd much rather conceptualize everything on my own. So I will take the pause, just as I showed you, like I will go, or I.
Now, I want to be clear. Are you saying pause or pose?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear your question.
Are you saying pause, P-A-U-S-E, or pose, P-O-S-E?
Okay, so what is the difference?
Yeah, that's a really interesting. That's an interesting point.
A pause, like.
Yeah.
Well, both apply.
Right. That's they're kind of one
in a position. Position is what I mean. Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah. So it's so I'll put a mirror in front of me. I'll study the position of my hand. I might even film myself and search for the ideal position of this hand versus that one. And all the while you have to remember that the whole body has to be balanced, because if you in real life, if you stretch your arm this way, you need to have the other arm stretched the other way, or it's going to be a leg. So this whole concept has to fit. Otherwise, it doesn't look right. It doesn't. You cannot convey the right body language. So I also have a 3D program, Maya, for those who know it, where I created my my model in 3D, and everything is articulated as in real life. So I'm also, from my computer, able to to manipulate the sculpture and to rotate it, and it's very convenient. But I also need the real scale model to really get a grasp of the of what it's going to feel like. 3D artwork cannot rely on just one position of the viewer. As 2D, you're facing a painting. Yes, things can shift a little bit as you, from the lighting, from the position that you look at it. But 3D, it has to be relevant 360. So it's not just, it's far more complicated than it seems. And that's, kind of my protection from copying, because who knows, eventually.
Amazing. So you talked about the idea that these sculptures can transcend cultures and that they evoke a certain emotion. What has been some of the interesting feedback that you've had?
So what's really interesting is whenever, and this is, I am very attentive to feedback from my viewers, because even before I will conceive artwork for the public, I will question the neighborhood. I will look at it. I will study it, because I want something that fits in. I don't want something that screams, here I am, and the rest is irrelevant. No, I want to fit in, because that's ultimately, when you do public art, the local people will become owners of that art. So you need to consider them in your process. If it looks like a scar, or it's not going to be well received. So that's important to me. What's interesting is that once the sculpture is finished and in place, people see things that I had not imagined. Most of the time, they understand what I'm trying to say, but sometimes they go beyond, and that's very, very interesting to me. That puts, that is so precious. This is why I am totally open to criticism. I mean, this to me, it helps me get better. It helps me. If you tell me, oh, this is good, I like it. Okay, thanks. If you tell me, I like it, but then I'm going to listen to you. You have something that you went beyond just looking at the piece. You went into assimilating the piece into your brain and into maybe going further than I had desired to. And that is very precious.
Beautifully put. So let's talk about what is happening right now for you. You have this major project, which, first of all, congratulations, is a huge accomplishment. You've been commissioned to create a kinetic work of art that is going to be a public work of art with a humongous budget, a $400,000 budget, which I think is an artist's dream come true. First of all, tell us how that process came about. We all know that these things do not happen overnight. I imagine there was several proposals and conversations that had to happen. But tell us kind of the beginning to where you're at right now.
Okay, so I need to correct you because this project is only $230,000.
Oh, I'm sorry.
The previous one was $450, which we accomplished with Marco Casagrande and my wife, who is an absolutely fabulous organizer of events. She can connect the dots like boom, 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 boom. I mean, she is key into my process. Absolutely. Today, I don't need her as much, but at the beginning, she was absolutely essential to our progress because I want to include her in the process. So anyway, actually, the fact that she works for the city now is kind of preventing me for having more work in the city.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, but it's okay. It's okay. Again, think big. Go beyond your comfort zone. That is to me key to being an artist. If you stay in your comfort zone, then okay, good. No, go beyond it. Just discover new things within your own creativity. Discover new things. So anyway, going back to the first project, and this will sound just incredible to most artists, but that $450,000 project, we responded, my wife and I and Marco responded to a call to artists. And this was 4 years ago. So this is 2 years into my going into making Dudali. 2 years. I kept responding to many calls to artists. Every day I would pitch in my boom, 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 all over the country. Some would be accepted, others not. But I wasn't really ambitious. And the problem is that when you apply for a public art that's going to be permanent, usually the requirements are that you have experience. And until you do, it's a problem. So this didn't require experience. Okay, so we pitch in, respond to the call to artists, and I'll never forget, I'm driving home, my phone rings, I pick it up, and my wife tells me, we got it. I'm like, what? Yes. I mean, I can tell you how I was singing. I shut off the radio and blasted singing on the way back home. I was 10 minutes away from home, opened the door, rushed to my wife, embraced her in tears. And then 5 minutes later, it becomes real. Shit. How the hell are we going to do this? It's like, man, this is humongous. My biggest budget before that might have been $5,000. I mean, this is like a mountain to climb with no gear. I used to climb mountains. Okay, I know what it takes. And once you start, there's no coming back. You have to go all the way. And that's the same deal here. So this is why, my military experience is very good in my determination in reaching the goal that's been decided. It's essential. You decide, and there's no turning back. No turning back. In this case, you commit people in your project there's absolutely no coming back. You have to go, no matter what, no matter what. And you have to improvise all the way. And the first time you meet your client, you have to, excuse my French, bullshit your way into making them, believe in you, trust you. So you have to come up with crazy ideas, but they have to be within. There are two ways to lie. Okay. You can either, okay, I know what you're thinking. Okay, you're probably thinking about, that tweeter. Okay, there are two ways to lie. You can either do it within reason, of what you can talk about, or you can just throw such weird things, such outrageous stuff that people actually believe it, thinking, oh, it's too important not to be true. And that's a big problem today. I mean, not just from our president, but from Facebook and all these things. Which, anyway, going back, I'll just shut that chapter because he's my neighbor, and
it's your neighbor. Oh, right, you're in West Palm Beach.
Yeah, I mean, he's less than 5 miles away. Anyway, I won't go back there. Where was I going? Please help me.
Well, I will interject real quick. You were talking about Richard Branson has a famous quote where he says, "Say yes and figure out how to do it later."
Okay, so just dive, jump in the water, and then you learn to swim. That's always been my, within reason.
Mm-hmm.
Let's be cautious. I've always been cautious where I've always known that I could eventually figure things out. I'm not going to jump off a building and thinking I'll figure it out on the way down. No, but within reason, just take risks, take chances. Going back to that first project, eventually, I mean, the first meetings were so intense. So we were careful about every word. We're dealing with people, the developer, you can tell his hands are twice as big as mine. Okay, mine are fairly strong. His are twice as big. You shake his hand, he's 2 feet taller than me, 200 pounds heavier, and it's not fat. And you can tell this guy rose from nothing. He's seen it all, and you're an artist, and he has to deal with you because West Palm Beach, again, it's that 1% for the arts. So there's this requirement from the city that every developer who builds anything more than $750,000 has to spend 1% of the art in the arts. And I love West Palm Beach. Everything about West Palm Beach, I completely embrace. I am a West Palm Beacher today, although I'm French, but it's become accessory almost. That first project, with the developer, intense, and little by little, they understood that we knew what we were talking about because we learned on the way. We read stuff, the city requirements. We knew this by heart so that when the next meeting, we were able to answer questions. It takes a lot of work, an awesome lot of work. And that's probably why you get so much money, because it's not just creating the art. There's this whole aspect of business. And again, I will say this also, although I had experience as a businessman before, one thing that tremendously helped me is the AEI. I don't know if you've heard of the AEI, the Artist Entrepreneur Institute.
Yep.
They're based out of Cincinnati, I think.
Okay.
I'm not sure. But there is a branch in Fort Lauderdale. And I took that class, and basically they give you all the tools to become a successful business-oriented artist, which is necessary. If you want to live off your artwork, you need to take it as a business. There's no other option. You have to be constantly, or you do something that's completely outrageous, like, taping a banana, although, there's a precedent to that. So it's not just the banana. It's, you have to know the artist to understand the process. But there is this attitude of managing your art as a business.
Mm-hmm.
Again, thank you, AEI. Thank you very much. So that was the first project, the major project. The developer was so happy with the concept, with the design, that he added $300,000 to the budget. So that became a $750,000 endeavor that we had to manage. I mean, everything from A to Z, the pouring of the concrete, everything was under our supervision. So we essentially became, what do you call that? A manager of construction workers. It was fun, very interesting. Learned so much stuff. Second project, I mean, we do the opening of the first project. That was December 13th of 18. Actually, my wife's 40th birthday. I planned it. It was a surprise. I planned it with the developer to do the inauguration on her 40th birthday. And at the end of the inauguration, everybody's a little tipsy and happy. The developer comes up to me and says, "So Beju, what's next on your agenda?" I look at him straight in the eyes, just like that, and I say, "Whatever you have for me." And he tells me, "Could happen sooner than you think." Sure enough, 3 months later, I get a call from this other developer who tells me, "We saw what you did, in West Palm Beach at Broadstone, your citizen garden, and we'd like to work with you. We have another similar project, and we'd like to work with you." Sure, I'll take it. And so this was, February of last year, and communication was not easy. I was in France then. And so, he didn't want Dudali. So I was a little annoyed by that. But hey, he's the client. He decides. Okay, so I need to come up with another concept. And came up with many things. He didn't like it. Didn't like it. This started in February. In August, I come back to the US, and I tell him, "Listen, we still don't have a project. Let's meet. I need you to put your guts on the table and tell me what is it you like, what you want. I need to feel you. I totally need to feel you. But don't worry, we'll figure it out. I have no doubt." Okay. So we spent a good hour and a half, and finally I was able to get things from him. And I decided, okay, you don't want Dudali, you're still going to get Dudali. But I'm going to go beyond the simple body language. It's not going to be purely body language from Dudali. It's going to be what is inside Dudali's mind. Okay? Are you with me?
Mm-hmm.
So I decided to use the same material. To me, it's important because that's really what I mastered. And so this is, this is one of the sculptures that I created. So I decided right away, to make a scale model because I thought that it'd be much more eloquent to somebody who's not an artist. A drawing is not as doesn't speak as well as an actual 3D concept. So this is eventually, we had a meeting with West Palm Beach Art and Public Places, AIPP, and it was a unanimous. I'll go through the struggle before this happened because it's too long of a story and a depressing one, but it worked out. So anyway, this is what I came out with, and it's been approved. We actually have a full-blown contract with my clients, and it's going to be the first kinetic sculpture, public kinetic sculpture in West Palm Beach. I'm very honored by this. And, I will quickly show you what it does. It's, I hope you can see this.
Yep.
Maybe I should bring it a little closer.
Yeah, bring it over. Let's get a closer look.
Yeah. Okay, so there's reflection from. Okay, so this is what's happening within Dudali's mind, or my own mind as I create. Okay, it's my neurons connecting. It's here is, I'm going to, when I did the presentation to IPP, this is what I did. I put the two sculptures. There's another one. But here, we quickly show you that it's too much. It's not going to be easy to transport. But knowing this piece, you know, I do performance art also. And performance, when you introduce something, an object, it's not just about the object itself. It's about the package that goes around it. This is also very important. I learned this when I sold my my sculptures of dogs in the mall at the beginning. You know, if you show me your dog, like, hey, yeah, here, I have this sculpture of a French bulldog. Okay, all right. But if I do this, here's a sculpture of your French bulldog. How do you like it? Totally different attitude. The package is very important. So here's what I did. I got to the meeting, the conference room, an hour and a half before the meeting, heart pounding. And I set up my two sculptures at the end of the conference table. And I covered them with a really light cloth. Then I told the committee, my artwork is there, it's covered. Before I unveil it, I want you to listen to what I'm about to say. And I want you to visualize things, every single word that I'm going to say. So here's what I said. It's a sunrise on the Atlantic. It's a sunset on the Gulf. It's seaweeds riding the waves. It's a panther ruffling the sawgrass. It's a peacock's parade. It's the Everglades. It's a woman reaching for the sky. It's my mother. It's children playing joyfully. It's my brother, my sister, and me. It's fronds waving on the ocean, on the beach. It's the 4th of July on the waterfront. It's West Palm Beach. It's the warehouse district. It's District Flats. It's a locomotive puffing along the eastern seaboard. It's my guts, my naughty guts as I create. It's my neurons connecting. It's organized chaos. It's Dudali because it's me. And then we uncovered the two sculptures. Wow, this is so cool. Oh, man. Can you move it? Oh, can you bring it closer?
Wow. Well,
Yeah.
I'm sold.
Pardon me?
I said, well, I'm sold.
Yeah, it's, you know, again, I think the whole, do not neglect any aspect of what you do. It's very, very important. When you, I mean, you look at what I did. Okay, I set up sort of a mock gallery to just, you know, I think it's important as I speak that I introduce you to my work. It's more relevant than just speaking about it. And it's tangible. It's not just, you know, way in the back or, you know, something that I would ignore. No, I want to communicate. I want you to understand who I am, what I do, why I do it. And eventually, why do I want to do that? Because eventually I want you to open up to me so I can create a Dudali that relates to you specifically. That is absolutely you. And when I sell a sculpture, when somebody contacts me and says, oh, you know, what do you have in stock? I'm interested with your work. So I always tell them, okay, I have this, and that. I send pictures, prices, and I always add, you know, this is what I have. If you find what you like, great. But keep in mind that I also do commissions, and that's really what I thrive into. I like to do something that relates to you only. So we spend a few hours, if they choose to do so, we spend a few hours together over, a few days. And then I go to work and submit 3 proposals, and they choose. And eventually they choose, oh, I like that, but, okay, no problem, I'll tweak it. So again, to me, it's important to, I am very, I truly like to please my client 100%, and I like to I really like to do something. I like to understand you before you buy my work. It's very important to me, and I've actually refused a couple of works saying, no, I can't do that. You need to find somebody else. I can't do it for you. It's not going to work. My guts are not there. It's not going to happen. Oh, sure.
I think that people, apart from maybe an elite few who buy art for a very different reason, I think most people do not buy art from intellect or from their brains. They buy it from their heart, right? They want to connect to the piece. And I think every little element of the way that you built up that story, you were already bringing me into the story. You were already bringing those clients in. You were giving them the touch points that they could relate to: family, friendship, fun, experience. So they were already imagining themselves experiencing these things before you actually unveiled that piece, which is such a huge part, because we want story. We want story around the work, and you were able to give that to them. It's a very powerful thing.
Thank you.
So I want to just, we are going to take some questions, folks. I do see a couple of questions here. You mentioned your wife a lot, and I believe your wife is watching. So shout out to your wife. Is it Cheryl?
Cheryl.
Shout out to Cheryl. So I want to know how important has it been for you as an artist, as a creative, to have Cheryl? How important has it been to have a comrade in the trenches, through the tough times, through the good times? How important has that been to you?
You know what? I'll say it in just a very short sentence. She kicks my ass.
Good.
She gets me in gear. I mean, she, for instance, this has nothing to do with art, okay? But it's a very fun story. Again, I've done a million different things in my life, and one of the most weird is that I worked for NASA for 6 weeks. Okay, so, and this all came out because of her. She sees an ad on the internet. At the time, she was pregnant. It failed. That it's too bad, but it did happen. She was pregnant and had to be in bed rest. So she looked online. What is available as instead of just being in bed, what can I do? Is there something? Can somebody benefit from my experience? So NASA was looking for people to be in bed rest for 6 weeks. And she contacts them, and they say, well, we can't take a pregnant woman. So she looks at me and she says, I just signed you up. Like, what do you mean? Yeah, I signed you up. It's going to be a fun experience. Like, okay. And so essentially I did spend, not exactly 6 weeks, because there was preparation before that. But I went to Galveston in Texas and became a study, what do you call it? Subject for study for NASA. So very, very difficult. I had to be in bed in a -6 degree slope for 5 weeks nonstop. You cannot leave that position. And you have 2 persons with an eye on you 24/7 through 3 different cameras. Every time you raise your head, Beju, oops, sorry. I mean, but it was an experience. Very tough, but it was an experience. Anyway, where was I going? Yes, Shirin. Shirin is the one that primed the pump. I mean, she's the one that, she's the one that saw that I was miserable in my work, in my business. She's the one that gave me the chance to actually, launch into the big void of being an artist, starting from scratch. She's the one that applied for that first major call to artist. Without her, I don't know. The most interesting thing is when we first met, she asked me, "So, what do you find attractive in me?" And I said, "This is going to sound very awkward again, but I love controversy or contradiction. I should say contradiction." I said to her, "I love the fact that you don't need me." So today we need each other essentially. I mean, it goes beyond love. It's we need each other because we work together and we work in such good harmony. When we work on an art project or when I work on a sculpture, I will ask her, "What do you think?" And she'll put a point of view in forward, and I'll say, "Okay, no, you're wrong." "Oh, yes, that's right. That is very true." So I will, work from what she said. So most of the time, yeah, every piece of work that I do is probably 90% me and 10% her, minimum.
Amazing.
Here's another story, which I think I talked to you about in the past, through your Facebook group. But one day this is 2.5 years ago when Barcelona, the city, Spanish city of Barcelona, was in turmoil when Catalonia was trying to get its independence from Spain. Airline tickets were so dirt cheap. Cost us $500 for the two of us round trip. Nothing. Wow. It's like, oh, why don't we go for 10 days? Let's do it. So when I go abroad, I've done this several times in different cities, but this is the most interesting one. When I go abroad, I always bring Dudali with me. Always. And I never leave the town or the place with him. He stays there, no matter what. So, if I'm lucky, I find the right spot that's difficult to reach, hence difficult to take down the Dudali. Or, if it's too easy, then eventually it disappears. But I know of 3 that are still in place because I constantly get pictures. And one is in Barcelona, one is in Helsinki, Finland, and another one in Paris, obviously. So, yeah, I'll be glad to tell you where. If people are willing to take pictures and send them back to me, it's always good to get feedback of my babies. But the one in Barcelona, again, remember, this is during the turmoil, the unrest, where you have cops, you have the military in the street everywhere, you have demonstrations everywhere. The governor is in jail. I mean, imagine what it's like. I'm like, okay, where am I going to leave Dudali? Do you know Barcelona?
I love Barcelona.
Oh, it's just fantastic city. When you're in the arts, it's just absolutely, there's such a boiling attitude. It's just so young at heart. That the fact that the Familia Sagrada project that's 150 years old is still under construction proves the energy, the creativity that is in that city. It's just fantastic. And it's at every corner of that street, that city. Anyway, Paseo de Gracia is where Gaudi has 2 of his major constructions, major houses. One is La Pedrera, and the other one is Casabatlo. And Casabatlo, across the street from Casabatlo, is a huge lamppost. The thing is 36 feet tall. I looked at the top. And I'm like, I used to hike mountains. Granted, that was 40 some years ago, okay? I can probably still do that. But, cops everywhere. This is, Paseo de Gracia is like your 5th Avenue in New York, in the city, New York City. How do I do this? It took me 3 days and a kick in the ass from my wife. Come on, just do it. Just go, go. I'll be down. I'll check it out. I'll make sure nobody shows up. 3 days later, 2:30 in the morning. Let's do it. Let's do it. So we rush out there. I managed to climb. She filmed it. I managed to climb, deposit my Dudali on the very top of that lamppost, come down. She filmed it 3.5 minutes. That's all I did. So this is what Cheryl does to me. I hope that covers everything about your question.
It's beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. What an amazing, relationship, and just, a beautiful, beautiful story. So we are going to close this out. So before we do, does anybody have any questions for Beju? I see a ton of love in the comments here. So let's see. You can. Somebody says, "What? Your mother is a smuggler?" We have Leo, super impressed. Michael, you are a millionaire in character, a billionaire.
Oh, Michael, how you doing? Nice seeing you, Michael.
And let's see what else we have here.
Michael is one of my main supporters here in West Palm Beach.
That's wonderful. A question from Jan, which I think you kind of answered this, but it's a great question. Have you ever said no to a client or walked away after their guts were on the table and you got a real feel for the client and did not like what you felt?
Yes, I did respond to that, but yes, there were 2 instances. I'm not going to go into details of, I do, Dudali is all about fun, is all about whimsy, but there's also, like I said, controversy. I like contradiction. I like to tease people. So that's also part of it. But there's never any bloody things or nasty stuff about Dudali. Never, ever. He's a fun dude, and he loves life as much as I do. When we introduced each other, you asked me, "How are you?" What did I say to you?
You said something like, "I'm better than ever."
No.
No, I'm as good as I look.
Yes. Okay. So that's my answer.
Right.
I always tell people, I feel as good as I look. What do you think? Okay. And so, you look okay. You look good. Another thing, today, let me place myself correctly. Today, people have this thing about, hey, how you doing? The fist. I cannot stand that fist motion. To me, this is not a connection. There's aggression into that signage. So when people reach with their fist, I do this instead. And they automatically understand. And they, what's that? Oh, and they point their finger. And then we both go. So this is, to me, that's also an important thing. Positive. Of course, sometimes I do get depressed at times, but I don't share that with people other than those who I know truly care about it. Mm-hmm. But those that I know are going to tell me, thoughts and prayers, or I don't care to hear that. I care to hear from the people that know me and that will actually do something to help me out. So yeah, I do have my downsides, but not too often, and it never lasts very long anyway.
Awesome. All right, folks. Well,
yeah. So I have refused work.
Okay.
Before. Yes.
Awesome. All right. So I don't see any additional questions, but let's let folks know where they can learn more about you. Is it Dudali.com?
Yes. So Dudali.com, as a lot of people with their websites, is not, up to date. You'll get a feeling of what I do, but it's if you want to stay current with what I do, Facebook, Instagram. I know I need to be more present on Instagram, and I failed to do that. Maybe I need to figure somebody to help me with that. But Facebook, I like Facebook. It's convenient. It's easy. It's I work with Facebook very well.
Wonderful. Well, Beju, it's been a beautiful, beautiful session. Thank you so much for your warmth and your energy and this just openness about your story. We really appreciate it.
It's my pleasure. And I can't wait to meet you face to face again, Rachel.
I know. Soon, once we can travel, I'll hop on down to West Palm Beach. I want to see these Kinetic sculptures in person.
They will be in place. I'm going to start installation early December.
Okay.
You know, construction here in my studio, but installation early December. And I committed to being finished by the mid-January.
Wow. Well,
so one last thing, advice: do not let scale intimidate you.
I think that's brilliant advice.
Think big.
Think big. Wonderful. All right, folks, that is our show for today. Thank you so much for tuning in. We had a great amount of people tuning in this morning. I think the Beju fan club, the Dudali fan club. So thank you, folks, for checking this out. We are here Monday through Friday, 11 a.m. on Facebook and on YouTube. And we will be back tomorrow. So thank you so much for tuning in.
Kisses to you.